there you have it, the Trek Emonda SLR 2021, all up in this. So the biggest hint in the previous video was obviously the T47 bottom bracket and the mention of that mainstream brand. But I gotta say, I'm very proud that so many people guessed Festka, for example. That shows that all the people watching my videos have exquisite taste in bikes. And if you haven't already seen it, definitely check out the Festka Scalatore build video we did 1.5 years ago with my mate Dom. The bike is very nice. But I didn't get the Festka or an Argonaut or even the Aethos, whatever we call it. Even though that's probably the lightest frame set on the market right now. So you might think I have totally lost the plot or something. And I will try to explain my reasoning and try to keep it short. See how that goes. To start with, weight is actually not the main priority I have when looking at the new bike or frame. Believe it or not, it's actually the touchy-feely stuff. I want to look at a bike and feel like I want to straddle that bad boy like a And yeah, that's number one. Second, I'm a very impatient man. While I spend a lot of time researching, once I have decided on something, I want it to happen yesterday. So going the custom route is never really an appealing choice to me. Third, building on that second point, I don't think there's an forever bike in my case. I know that within 2 or 3 seasons, I will start itching to get a new frame, new bike or whatever. So spending an obscene amount of money on a custom bike and then waiting for 6 months to a year to get it delivered, it's just not for me. Regarding the Specialized Aethos, oh, god damn it. I knew people would think that that was the frame I would get, so that's why I specifically said it's not a Specialized. And that's not really because I have anything against Specialized per se. And if weight was the #1 priority, there's not really any lighter option than the Aethos out on the market right now, I think. But looking at that bike, I just don't get that feeling that I want to throw my leg over that saddle, squeeze those levers. Even though I probably would agree that objectively they make some of the best mass-produced bikes out there on the market. It just doesn't speak to me. Sorry for the hippie shit. So why in the hell a Trek? And I probably would have asked myself the same questions a year ago. But to start with, if Trek would still have been on the BB90 bottom bracket, I wouldn't have this frame today. But now with that BB47 having native support for my THM crank, I started to research the geometry, the colorways, and all the specs and stuff like that, and it got me more and more intrigued the more I looked at it. And I knew I wanted a frame with a bit more integration with the cables, but still be able to use those boutique parts, handlebars and stems. And the Emonda fit the bill pretty good in that regard. Now I know it won't be as neat as with integrated the handlebar and stem from Bontrager, but I just don't want the Trek decked out with old Bontrager like every other Trek out there. I want to build up something more unique to me, even though this is a mainstream frame. And besides that, Bontrager RSL handlebars has a really sketchy geometry with like 100mm reach, and that's probably like 20mm too much for my taste. What sealed the deal though on this Trek was the 1.5 geometry they use now. So with this size 58, I have 9mm longer reach, and the stack is only 1mm higher than my Trek. And with the fit changes I plan on doing, I will be able to run this fully slammed with no spacers, because this frame is definitely not a looker with those fat spacers under the stem. And speaking of size, I often get the question, how tall am I and what size bike do I have? And I'm always reluctant to give like size advice just depending on your height. For example, I could easily have gone with a 56 frame as well, but I thought I would share 2 websites I use to figure out exactly what size to go with especially when I already have a bike that I can compare it with. The first site is geometrygeeks.bike. Super nifty and quick to just search for your bike and line them up, and you can see the difference in all the geometry numbers with a quick glance. The second site I used was bikegeocalc.com. It's a bit more in-depth. You input your numbers yourself, but you can include everything from stem length and spacers and setback and all that stuff to really see the difference between your new and old frame, and if you need new handlebars, if you need longer stems, etc. Can't recommend these sites enough if you're trying to figure out what size bike you need. So check it out. One nice surprise about this frame is the tire clearance. The official spec is only 28mm, but a new Trek is pretty conservative when it comes to those specifications. And lo and behold, I tried to put my all-road wheels, which has the 35mm Gravel Kings, and they actually fit the frame fine and spun without any rubbing. It's a bit too close for me to actually ride it, but I think I will just swap those all-road wheels to 32mm, and then I can share that wheel set between the Trek and the Open if I want to. So good to know if you're looking. Okay, so the elephant in the room, the weight. Now, I was fully aware that this frame is not in the same league as the S-Works Aethos frame, but I knew that Matt's Petersen white size 58 Emonda SLR came in at 830 something grams. You can see that in a YouTube video. So I knew that realistically, even with the heavy paint I have chosen, I should be under that 830 grams. And I was correct there. My frame is also a 58, like I said, and it came in at 806.7 grams. And that's with the hanger and the duo tap cover, but without the bottle cage bolts. So I'm happy with that. The fork is 406 uncut, and honestly, I had hoped for a sub 400 grams here, but at least I have quite a bit of steer to cut, so we'll see where that ends up during the build. So the bare frame set weights should ensure that I get below that 6.6. That is my first goal for this bike. But then we come to the small bits and pieces. For example, the mandatory headset cover, cable spacer, together with the headset bearing and split ring is 82 grams. Add the proprietary expander and top cap and we're talking 123 grams. Compare that with my open setup, which was 74 grams altogether. Since the steerer tube has that special shape, the only thing I can swap out here is the top cap, but at least that means half the weight of the original Bontrager top cap. So it's always something. Then we have this part that I dislike the most about this frame set, and that's the proprietary seat post or seat stopper or seat topper, whatever they want to call it. This is the only Bontrager part that will be on this bike because I don't really have any other choice for now. But at least since I bought this as a frame set, I could choose the lightweight version of this post and the shorter one because I don't really need that extra length. But we're still talking 128 grams, so it will be an increase over my Dorimo seat post that's now sold. Sad face. The second annoying thing is the Trek non-standard 7x10mm saddle clamp instead of the normal 7x9, which meant I had to pick up a pair of extra seat clamp ears for my Berg saddle. I read that people still manage to use their 7x9 saddles with the 7x10 clamp, but since they have this in stock and it's relatively cheap, I thought why not? And on a positive note, I saved 1.6 grams. The through axles are rather porky as well, 30 and 40 grams respectively, and if for some unknown reason you insist on having that handle, it would be 90 grams for the pair. I already have some replacement on the way though, so I'm hoping to at least match my open up carbon TI axles. finally that little detail that is the ball cage bolts, and they are pretty respectable at 4.7 grams for 4 bolts. Still, I will use a set of carbon TI bolts I have leftovers from an old Bianchi. Not that it will save much weight, but they will still sit better with my tuned ball cages that just arrived the other day. Definitely feel like I'm betraying my beloved mandibles, but at 10 grams per cage, what can you do? Like I said, this colorway is probably not the lightest one you could have chosen, but since I like colors and I get 2 of them depending on which angle I look from, I will count this as a extra bonus. And I don't mind a little bit of disco silver here and there as well, so I'm very stoked about this colorway. It's gonna look delicious, and I think it will look even better in the sunlight. But that's all down to personal preference. You might hate it, and that's okay. People have different tastes. There's my taste and there's the wrong taste. We just have to accept that. Lastly, I would just like to point out that I'm not trying to sell anyone a Trek. Honestly, I would probably not recommend anyone spending this kind of money on a bike, no matter how good it was. But nothing here is sponsored, paid for, or received for free. Everything is stuff I wanted and was willing to spend my own money on. The main reason I do these kinds of videos, apart from the fact that I like making videos, is just I want to share that info, like actual weights, tire clearance, and that kind of info that I want to know myself for whatever that's worth. I'm quite annoyed that I even need to mention this, but in this world with a lot of paid content out there, I thought it might be good to know. Anyway, now I just need to start building up this puppy. And if you haven't seen the previous video where I go through all the parts that's going on this frame, feel free to check that out here or down in the description. It will probably take a while to film and edit this video, so don't expect the build video to be out like next week. But since now this is unveiled, I will probably do a couple of Instagram stories during the actual build, so feel free to follow me on Instagram if you feel a bit impatient waiting for that build video that I'm guessing probably will be done sometime in January time-ish, I think. Until then, if you want to, I will catch you in the next one. Peace.